Okay, confession time. I am horrible at remembering names. Like, really bad at it. Like, I just went on a Viking river cruise with my mom, and they make you sit down with people at dinner. You'd never get to eat alone. You have to sit with other people, and people would come up and literally be like, it was mainly couples. They would go, "Hi, I'm Beth. This is Tom." And then they would say where they were from and go on. And 3 minutes later, I'd be going, what are their names? What are their names? I am not good at it. And this isn't new. Years ago, when I was in college and I worked at Nordstrom, you walk up to someone shopping, you go, "Hi, do you need a fitting room?" And they say yes. And I go, "Great, what's your name?" And they give me their name and I walk away and I go, "What was their name? What was their name?" This has been a problem for a long time. Now, the weird part is I am stupidly amazing at faces. It's why I was actually really good in casting. I can see somebody and go, "Oh, they were my server at that restaurant 3 months ago." I have run into a Starbucks barista in line in front of me at a pizza place across town and gone, "Oh, hey, how's it going, Kyle?" Now, his name I did remember because he had been my barista for 6 months. But I will see people and go, "Did we go to kindergarten together?" Like, I remember faces, no problem, but names, not so much. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know many of you struggle with this too. I have scoured the internet for the best advice on how to remember people's names. And fun fact, yesterday I was at an NSA meeting, which is not security, it's National Speakers Association. I was at our Arizona regional meeting and I got to take these tips and put them into practice. So today I'm going to walk you through the best strategies for how to remember names, and I will share with you how they worked for me when I put them into practice yesterday. Because whether you're heading to a conference, starting a new job, or just tired of that awkward moment when you can't remember someone's name, this episode is for you. So, welcome to today's Coffee and Connection. I'm ready. Hope you are too. Let's start talking about remembering names. Now, before we jump into how to do it, the strategies, let's talk about why this is important. Because it's more than just memory. In networking and professional relationships, remembering someone's name demonstrates respect, it builds connection, it shows you actually care about them as a person. And I'm big on care over here. Memory trainer Jim Quick, and by the way, go look up Jim Quick after this. I didn't know he was known as a memory trainer. Thought that was interesting to be a memory trainer. But memory trainer Jim Quick often says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? We need to show care. Knowing someone's name fosters belonging. Repeating their name fosters belonging. It improves follow-up. And it can set you apart in your career journey. Because here's the thing, networking is really about the follow-up, not the first meeting. And if you can't remember someone's name, you can't really follow up well. Now, thank God for pictures on LinkedIn, and this is why I'm very against AI photos, old photos, overly Photoshop photos. I need you to look like you so I can find you again. But if I can't remember your name, I literally can't follow up with you. So it's not just about being polite, it's about building real lasting relationships. And if you want to hear about connection-driven communication, well, knowing someone's name is about as connection first communication you can get, right? So, tip number 1, this is going to sound so obvious, but we don't do it. Pay full attention when someone says their name. This is my big issue. I really admit this is my big issue, and I'll get into why in a second, but research from Boston University says the biggest leak happens before you even try to remember the name. If you weren't mentally tuned in when they said it, it doesn't encode in your brain in the first place. And that's because we're often distracted, we're thinking about what we're gonna say next, and to me, part of it is I have nothing to attach it to, which will come to a point in a second, but we aren't in the middle of a conversation yet. Names come first. I know nothing else about you, and so I have nothing to attach your name to, and that makes it harder for me to remember. Not to mention, when I say we're distracted, a lot of times we're not distracted by thinking about ourselves and what we're gonna say. I think a lot of times it's like at the Viking dinner, the cruise dinners, I'm in the middle of eating food right as they said their name, so my brain is on that and not on them. Or you're at a party and someone says their name and you see someone across the room at the same time. I really think a huge piece of it is just we're just not in it yet. Once we're in a conversation, I can remember so much about it, but since the name happens at the top, it's hard. So we need to really pay attention at the start of a convo. Pay attention to their name and anchor yourself in the moment. Do something like saying their name and then who the person is. What are they dressed like? Or what is their hair color? Or what part of the room did you meet them in? If you shake hands, if you pass a business card, I don't think business cards should be passed at the beginning, but if you do, if you're shaking hands, that's something, or you wave hi, really make yourself present in those first 2 to 3 seconds. Why this works is because, as obvious as this sounds, you can't remember something you didn't actually hear. Your brain needs that moment to encode the name. So for me yesterday at the meeting, I really tried when someone said their name to me, even though we had name tags, you don't want to be the person who's like staring at the name tag. I really tried to kind of go, okay, Susan, gray hair, black and white suit, Susan, in my head, and kind of take that moment before asking something else. We think we're like pausing for a long time. We're not. Your brain does it so fast, but you just need to pay attention. Second tip, repeat the name and use it immediately in conversation. This one I think sometimes feels awkward at first, but it's not as awkward to the person hearing it, because what have we all heard from, I believe it's Dale Carnegie, the sweetest word to anyone is their own name, so they don't think it's strange. So when you hear a name, say it back to them. Not they say my name's John and I go, oh, my name's Cassandra. I go, nice to meet you, John. I'm Cassandra. Done. And then try and use it again during the conversation. This will reinforce the link between the face and the name. So for example, later on, I could go, so John, how did you hear about this meeting, right? This really works because repetition strengthens those neural pathways, and using it in context helps your brain to file it properly. So I'm gonna be very honest. I didn't really get to put this one into practice yesterday. Now I'm gonna try more at events I go to this week. But I will say, going back to does it seem awkward? I have noticed when people use it on me, a lot of people who are good at names will say your name again at the end of the conversation, like as they're walking away. It'll be well, it was great talking to you, Cassandra. I hope we get to catch up more. And I always clock, they remembered my name. So I know it has value, so I'm gonna really work on this one. Hopefully you will too. Now, number 3, I already kind of did in combination with number 1, but it is to create an association or a visual image. Because here's where it comes. Names are arbitrary. They don't mean anything on their own, right? That's my whole problem. You say your name, I have nothing to connect it to yet. Unless you have the name of my best friend, or you have the name of my dad or my mom or something like that. Your name is arbitrary. That is why they're so hard to remember. So try and link the name to something familiar or create a silly association. One of the examples is if the person's name is Mike, you think of a microphone because the guy has a really loud voice. Now here's where it doesn't work. People do this where they play like the name game and go, oh yeah, I made all these associations, but they have nothing to do with the person. It has to be to the person. So for me, it is easiest to just go and think about, oh, the one with the gray hair. But let's say the person's name is Helen and she has on a very classy outfit. Well, Helen to me sounds like a kind of old school classy name. So I could make that connection of, oh yeah, she's very classy. Her name's Helen. Great. The other thing you can do, and I didn't try this one yesterday, but I will in terms of visual imagery, is you picture their name written across their forehead. Apparently this is a trick that works. Remember, I told you I scoured the internet. This is one of the tricks they said. Let me know if you try this one. But if you can just picture their name across their forehead, write it on their forehead. Okay. And interestingly, silly associations do better because they're more memorable. So I'm gonna have to work on my silliness factor, but one of the examples I saw was the person says their name is Julia and she's wearing a big sparkly necklace, and you think Jules because of the necklace, Jules, Julia. I'll be very honest, I think that works for some people better than others, but I do need to try that one more. Now here's a really simple one, but it doesn't work with everybody. Ask something to reinforce the connection. So they say their name and you go, oh, interesting, how's that spelled? I get a lot with Cassandra. Every now and then I get people go, oh, do you have a nickname? Do you go by Cassie? Do you go by Casey? I never understand that one, but that is a way to reinforce. Oh, do you have a nickname? This one helps because it gets the brain more engaged and it makes the name more meaningful and not just a label. So that's something to think about too. Your brain has to start spelling it and then you remember it. Now I will say it'd be strange if somebody's name is John or let's say if somebody's name is James, you go, and how do you spell that? even in our world where people are doing weird phonetic, like odd spellings, and phonetics has gone out the window, or phonics has gone out the window, James is probably spelled James. But you could say, oh, do you go by Jim often, or are you always James? It's a way to start a conversation. And then tip 5, I said this already as part of the reinforce part, but use the name when saying goodbye. This one works really well. I did do this with a couple of people, but I want to be better at it. So always end your interaction with their name, like, thanks, Samantha. That was really helpful advice you gave, and great connecting with you. Hey, Tim, I really enjoyed getting to talk. I'd love to get your card and maybe we can follow up later this week. Whatever it is, but you end on their name. So again, this gives your brain another tag. It helps move you forward with long-term recall. And interestingly, it completes a loop. You started with your name and you're ending with their name. It finishes off that conversation nicely. So I do remember doing this yesterday, specifically with the person sitting next to me, because in the middle of the meeting, I found myself kind of forgetting her name. And I had to keep reminding myself. And so I made sure as I ended to say, you know, it was so nice meeting you, Krista, and like went on. It definitely does help. And like I said, as the receiver, I've noticed when people do this and I think, oh, that's really nice. They remembered my name. So it's going to leave a stronger impression. So that's one for me I really want to work on. Tip 6, write the name down and a detail soon after, like as quickly as you can. So I try this a lot at networking events, that if I meet a couple of people, I kind of get myself out of the room to either pull up my phone and write down who I met and a detail about them, or like yesterday at the meeting, there's some networking time and then we sit down for the workshop part. And as we sit down, I will write down the names of the people I met and either what they were wearing, since I'm visual about that, or a detail, something they said. This is really important because writing reinforces memory. And then it also gives you something to reference later. So, you know, I'm a big fan of writing down if you talked about a sports team, or if they say their company name, or what they're focused on doing next, whatever it is, any details you can write about them, write it, because then you can bring it up later as you build that relationship. So this is the one I probably use the most already, but oftentimes I would have to pull out business cards, right? If they give me a business card, I have to pull out their business card to look at their name again and say it. Now I'm trying to go from memory. Now, last tip is called a spaced refresh, and it's about trying to remember their name later in the day so that it locks in your memory longer. Interestingly, I have used this one with meeting people at church. We have a time period where, you know, oh, go greet some people. And for example, a couple weeks ago, I met a couple people I hadn't met before, and I did go back to my seat, kind of saying their names over and over again in my head to go, okay, next week when I see them, I want to remember their name. I want to be able to say hi. And then when I got home, this would be the spaced refresh part, is after the event, after meeting somebody, try and see, can I remember their name again? That spaced repetition locks in long-term memory. Isn't that interesting? So each time you retrieve the name, you strengthen the pathway. And so interestingly, those people I met at church, later in the day I went, wait, those people I met, what were their names? What were their names? And I thought about it and I went, yep, those, okay. And I could say their names, and I kind of said them over in my head a couple of times. Well, it's been a couple of weeks, and this morning, fun fact, after this, I know we do this on Mondays, but I film it on Sundays, so I'm sorry to break the magic, but I am headed to church after this, and I thought, okay, if I see those people, what are their names? And at first I couldn't remember one person's name, and I sat there and I'm like, it started with an S. Was it this? Was it that? And honestly, as I've been going through this, I went, oh my gosh, I remember their name. Now I'm not going to share it for you, but I've remembered their name. And I think it's because of this tip that I didn't just say hi at church and go, okay, and move on with my day. I forced myself to remember their name at a weird time. So I think this one is super helpful for people that you're definitely going to run into again. Like this goes for if you're new at church, or if you've just joined an association, etc. When you're in your car, think back on the event and go, can I remember the names of the people I met at that event? When you're in your car driving home from work for the day, go through the office and think, okay, what was the name of this person and this person and this person? Start trying to remember their names. Like play it as a game in your car to try and remember their names so that it locks in. Now, here's what I want you to do. You heard from me that not all of them work all the time. So Pick one. Pick one that you are going to try this week, right? This is why we do Coffee and Connection on Monday, so we have something that we can work on to be better connectors in the week ahead. Which one are you gonna work on? Let me know in the comments. I would love to know which one you're gonna work on. I will cheer you on. And then come back and let me know, how did it work? Did it feel awkward? Did it improve? Because here's the thing, y'all. People want to be remembered. We want to be remembered. I want someone to remember my name. So we all have to work on being better at this. Everybody wants to be acknowledged, appreciated, and just remembered. And when you remember their name, you're telling them they matter. Now, if you found this helpful, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our Monday morning Coffee and Connection meetings. And if you missed our first one, I'll have it for you right here. And since names are a part of introductions, well, I have a great video on how to make the most of introducing yourself. I'll put that video right here, and I'll see you next week. Bye.